Evening. Welcome back to Edible Education 101. I'm Will Rosenzweig. I'm your course guide. This, believe it or not, is class meeting number 12. We have 2 more to go. Tonight's topic is food waste. We have 2 really special, knowledgeable guests with us tonight who are going to inform us about both the challenges and the opportunities at the kind of local, community, global, and personal levels. Should be really informative. Just to remind you, this is a technology-free class, so if you don't mind putting away your screens, that would be great. A special announcement. Sunday, April 30th, 1 to 4 p.m. in Healdsburg, California at Front Porch Farm. A special benefit for Slow Food San Francisco. And Sally Rogers, who's the president of Slow Food, is down here. And she would be thrilled if members of the class want to participate in that fun event. Anybody else want to make an announcement tonight before we get going? No? Everybody's okay? It's your last chance. Okay, good. Here is our roll call. And if you take out your iClicker, you can answer this question. This plays into your reading of the intro to the ReFed report. So if you wouldn't mind doing this, we'll take attendance. We're also, just as a heads up, we're going to do this again later. So later on in the class, we're going to have another couple of questions for you to answer. How are we doing, Rohini? Give you a couple more. I don't know if we...
10 more seconds.
All right, let's stop and see what the answer is. Ooh. Oh, let's see. Well, it looks like some people didn't really get the content there. Look at all the people shifting their answers now. Okay, well, we know who you are. All right, we'll come back to that. The correct answer is C, I believe. No, yes, the correct answer is C. Is that right, Jesse? Yes. Correct answer is C. So, about 55% of you got the right guess on that. How's that? All right. Last week I gave you the assignment, and I was thinking about the assignment this week. Remember, this is really for you to develop a perspective on an issue that you care about, and then research the varying and differing perspectives on that issue, and then outline those perspectives, take a stand on one, and then develop a strategy and some tactics about how you would best deliver that stand to persuade someone who doesn't share your opinion. So it's a challenging question. I know some of you are already working away on it because you've contacted us with your questions and clarifications. So just to make things even more exciting, I thought this week, why don't we add an extra credit bonus dimension to this question? How do you like that? I know some of you really like extra credit, right? So here's the extra credit. For 25% more of your grade, on an additional 1 page, you get to outline you get to elaborate the competing argument. So you actually take both stands. You argue the one you care about, and then you argue the one that's contrary to that. How does that sound? Anybody going to do it? All right. Yeah, we got an ambitious class here at Berkeley. So we'll post this up on B courses. I'm sorry? Yeah, it's a maximum of an additional 25%. Yeah. Okay. We're also working on the field trip. We've been kind of thinking about this for most of the semester. We need your input now. We're getting down to logistics. We've got a date, which is May 5th. That's during that week called, what's that week called? RRR. week, which means rest, relaxation, and regeneration or something, right? But anyway, that was the most popular week of the members of the class. Now we'd like to find out what our options for getting there are. So if you have access to a car and you could drive, let's call it an average of 3 other people, put A on your clicker. And if you are inclined to go but could be willing to pay, like for a bus, if we were to rent a bus, put B, okay? We'll see who turns up for that. How are we doing?
Fair amount.
Good.
What people are thinking.
Should I switch over? Yeah, I'd like to see it. I think it'd be interesting to see it. Okay. So we've got 32 people who could drive, and which actually might work because I think we had a total of 70 people or something that wanted to go. So we'll have your information, and we'll be in touch this week on logistics and releases and all the details like that, okay? We'll freeze this and take it. People are voting for other things. A lot of wise guys here. So now another thing I promised you early in the year was that for those of you that were very conscientious about asking questions as part of that Sunday night homework, who have contributed questions that the student instructors and readers have chosen or called out, what we did was we collected all of those names of people throughout the semester, and Rohini put your name in here on a little piece of paper. If you actually had more than one question submitted, your name is in here more than once. So Rohini, come up here for a second. What we're going to do is we're going to draw out 2 names from here, and if you happen to be here tonight, you will be coming to dinner with Sam Cass on April 26th at Chez Panisse. If you're not here, play along at home. Okay, the first winner is?
Jessica Lee.
Jessica Lee. Are you here tonight, Jessica?
Oh.
Yes, she's here.
Oh,
good.
yay.
Okay,
Good.
Jessica's here. And way to go, Jessica. Don't be too embarrassed. Yeah, big applause for Jessica. Way to go. Okay, second name is Aaron Jaragai. Did I say that right? Aaron, all right. You're in. Jessica and Aaron, we will see you for dinner on April 26th. Don't dress up. Okay. So just a quick review for Jesse and Dana. This was the semester so far. It's been a whirlwind. We had Alice Waters the first week talking about slow food values. Mas Masamoto the second week talking about the beauty of farming in collaboration with customers. Robert Reich was here talking about saving capitalism and the concentration of power in our government, where economic power and political power come together. Was kind of capped off that night by Naomi Starkman from Civil Eats talking about the importance of an independent press, particularly in the food system. Then Saru Jayaraman was here talking about restaurant workers' rights and the triangulation with increased sexual harassment and wages in that area. The next week we talked about the microbiome with the 3 musketeers from Stanford and Davis who showed us the microbiome of a mouse. Next week we had our food tech innovation intensive, and we had 5 or 6 entrepreneurs talking about food delivery and plant-based protein and the connected kitchen of the future and digital food. And that was followed by Anna LePay and Sophie Egan, who talked about feeding a planet of 9 billion people and also the millennials' penchant for food, followed by Raj Patel, Michael Pollan. The next week we had Gary Hirschberg and Paul Shapiro. And following that we had Davia Nelson from the Kitchen Sisters and the founders of Cowgirl Creamery. And then last week we had your good friend Michelle Nishan from Wholesome Wave. So it's been really a pretty amazing semester so far. Very happy with that. This week, really delighted to have two people that have been really instrumental in really raising both the visibility and the credibility in the food waste space. And pardon the pun, but this was sort of an area of food where there's a lot of low-hanging fruit. There's a lot of opportunity, there's a lot of challenges, but it seems to be an area that people are particularly passionate about, both at a kind of community level, at a global level, at a supply chain level, and then also at a personal level. So our two speakers tonight are coming at this from different perspectives and different approaches. And I thought it would be really interesting for you to hear kind of different theories of change or different methods at coming at attacking a problem. And our first guest tonight is Jesse Fink. And Jesse, along with his wife, Betsy, are the founders of the Fink Family Foundation, and their daughter, Carly's actually here tonight. Hi, Carly. And it's a family endeavor that really has focused on catalyzing that ReFed report that you read. And what's interesting about Jesse and Betsy is they really started their educational path in the environmental science area and studied forestry and other dimensions of the environment. And then Jesse somehow fell into being an entrepreneur in a company called Priceline. Remember that company for some of you that are older than 20? Priceline was really the first company to bring the power of the internet to travel and was really looking at optimizing inventory. And the inventory of airline seats is something the industry thinks of as being perishable. So there's actually some common ground between what the problems Priceline was taking on, perishable inventory, and the world of ReFed, which is also looking at perishable inventory in fruits and vegetables in particular. So Jesse's going to share with you his journey with putting together the ReFed report, and I'm going to ask him to speak for about a half hour or so. Then I'm going to introduce Dana. But without further ado, please welcome Jesse Fink to the stage. Here is your clicker. Your mic is on.
Am I on?
You're on. You're ready to go.
Okay. Well, hello, everybody. Thanks for coming out and spending the evening with me. And thanks for answering the ReFed quiz. First time or the second time around, so appreciate that. As Will said, I have about a half hour, and there's three aspects of what I'd like to cover. The first is really the journey of what Betsy and I have been going through for the last 20 years in our quest in looking for sustainable solutions. The second part, I'll talk about ReFed and how we got to the ReFed report and what's happened in the year since we launched the ReFed roadmap. And then the third, I'll just touch a little bit on a personal aspect of where Betsy and I have been the last couple days and some learnings we had in sort of the epicenter of food and produce in particular in Nogales, Arizona, where we came back from yesterday. I want to just say thank you to Will for giving me the opportunity to speak this evening, and for this is such a great class and an honor to be here following the other speakers. It's great to share the stage with Dana. We've done it a couple different times, and have great respect for the work that Dana and NRDC has been doing in food waste really long before we got involved with it. In the audience is Sarah Varad, who is with Mission Point Partners and was really the author and the champion of the ReFed report. and has been involved in food waste for the last couple years. And actually, she and Dana have traveled the country speaking together. And she's my lifeline. So if there are really specific data questions, I'm going to call on Sarah. And next to Sarah is Chris Cochran, who is the new executive director of Refed. And so after the class, you should go surround him with questions and everything else. And behind them is my wife, Betsy, who really is the inspiration for everything that's going on. And as Will said, Betsy and I met in forestry school in Syracuse, New York, a while ago, and got married and have been on really a journey to solving environmental problems over the last 30 years or so. And specifically, after Priceline, which was quite an opportunity for us when we both were at Priceline. When we left the company, we had an opportunity to really do whatever we wanted to do, and at that point, we started the foundation, and the foundation was focused on environmental solutions, and that was nearly 20 years ago, and we have been on this journey for things related to climate change, sustainable agriculture, food access, and all of that leading to where we are with food waste. And so it's Betsy who's been the inspiration, and if at any point you want to come up here, you can come up here, but the next time she will. So Priceline was business model innovation, and I don't know if you could just raise your hands of how many folks are in the business school or have had access to that. That might be helpful to me so I get a sense. Great, thank you. When we were developing Priceline, the term business model was not used, nor business model innovation. We just really wanted to solve the problem that there were empty seats in airlines and people wanted to travel, but they couldn't afford to travel. And so it was actually using technology as an enabler with the business model innovation, and that's how we created the business behind Priceline, and 18 years later, it continues to be a phenomenal company, which I'm very proud to have been a part of in the beginning. And as Will said, it's neat to come full circle and to be looking at really perishable products. An airline seat isn't going to perish, but the airline, the inventory of it's considered perishable if someone's not sitting in it and they're not getting revenue. But a tomato is going to perish, and so the same aspects that we were thinking about when we were creating Priceline are back to what we're thinking about as it relates to food waste. So if I sort of can think through the 15 or 20 years that we have been in this space, its business model innovation has been one of the drivers for us. A term called impact investing. Again, we've been doing this for 15 years before there was the term of impact investing, but for us it was aligning our values and our purpose with our assets. And investing is not just financial investing, and capital is not just financial capital, but it's all forms of capital: financial capital, intellectual capital. There's 3 other forms, I can't remember what they are, but it's aligning all those forms. So for us, the impact investing is kind of all in. It's really what we've been doing, and sometimes it leads with an investment, sometimes you follow with the investment, but it's the belief that you actually can make a financial return and you can have a social impact, and you don't have to trade off one or the other. And we have been doing this for a really long time. We're thrilled that the field has gotten much larger, and there are now many more people who are doing it. The course is probably taught here. It probably has been taught for a long time since the school is pioneering in so many different ways. But it has become more and more mainstream, and that's great. In addition to the investing side, what Betsy and I have been doing through the foundation, and now bringing Drew and Carly in as well, is venture philanthropy or catalytic philanthropy. And our definition of that is being early, like venture capital, but it's venture philanthropy. So being early, trying to solve a problem, taking risks early on before other foundations or other forms of capital would come into that. And we've done that quite a bit. Last week, when Michel Nishan was here, he talked a lot about the double SNAP, the double value program. And Betsy and I were the first funders of Wholesome Wave. And in the form of venture philanthropy, I remember Michel and his partner sitting in our conference room and talking about the concept of double value coupons at farmers market, the SNAP, and saying, you know, we just need to get this started, and how are we going to get it started? And Betsy and I, we took a break and went outside and came back and said, Michel, we'll double the double. So in Michel's talk, he talked about having some funders and people who backed him, and we were the first one. And we essentially gave him a grant so that in 5 cities, he could double the double. And that was the start of the double coupons. And we've had quite a few of those over the last 15 years that we've been doing. And we're really quite proud of the organizations, the nonprofit organizations that we have supported. All of this is, we kind of narrowed down to this triangle. And I want to credit my partner at Mission Point Partners, Mark Cirilli, with the triangle. And it's how we make decisions. And you look at it, and there's probably a Buddhist triangle or other religion triangles, different things that are similar to this. But it's kind of a guiding principle for us. When we look at an opportunity to make an investment, or we look at an opportunity to do other activities, we look at the 3 points of the triangle: personal fulfillment, profit and financial return, and purpose. And it's just a way that when we are evaluating if we want to get engaged in an investment or engaged in an activity, where does it fit? And hopefully, if we do it well, it's actually going to be on all points of that. In some cases, it's very heavily on a financial return. Other cases, it's something that's very personal fulfillment. Hopefully, in all cases, there's purpose behind it. And so that has been our guiding light. We started our foundation, the Betsy and Jesse Fink Foundation, and Betsy was very focused on agriculture and sustainable agriculture. I was focused on renewable energy and on the energy sector, and we each kind of did our own thing. Betsy was on the board of American Farmland Trust and on Wholesome Wave, and a couple of other farming and agriculture nonprofits. And through that, she learned about policy issues and some of the challenges that small-scale farmers were having, and made a decision that she wanted to be one of those farmers and have those challenges herself. And so, but really, actually, she made a decision that she wanted to start a farm and to get hands-on experience. And part of it actually was growing food. Big part of it was growing food for our family and to have our kids have an experience of working in the farm. And through that, the farm was called Millstone Farm. We started it, owned it for 10 years, and just recently sold it when we moved out of the state of Connecticut. But it really was a laboratory for us, and it was a way to get hands-on experience. And I say us, but it really was Betsy. It was her dream and her passion, and Millstone was and continues to be really a hub of innovation in our local community and also a platform domestically as well. While owning the farm, our focus was growing healthy food and helping other farmers, educating restaurants and markets, having consumers come up to the farm. And so we used it really as a platform for our learning and for teaching other people. And through that process and realizing how difficult it was to grow healthy, sustainable local food, we realized how much food was being wasted out the other side. And on our farm, it wasn't much waste at all because we picked every single bean and we sold pretty much everything that we could grow. But Betsy would go to the market and would go to restaurants, and as she or her staff was delivering food coming in, you'd go around the back door and you would see in the dumpster just pounds and pounds of good food, produce mostly, that was being thrown in the dumpster. So that kind of awakened her to say, you know what, food waste is an issue, what can we do about it? And so we learned a lot on the farm. This is showing Johnny, who was our farmer. We created this thing called a melanator, which was actually we'd go to the markets, bring it back, and then make compost and make food for our chickens and pigs. At the same time, we started supporting various nonprofits so that we could learn more about food waste. We supported gleaning programs and some research and policy work, really to kind of get our arms around the issues of food waste. These are some of the grantees that we did from the foundation, and we learned a lot, they learned a lot. An important part that we try to do is get our grantees together and share information. Here was a big tent we had, and there's the metaphor of being under the tent, but we were all together at Millstone Farm under the big tent and sharing stories and examples of what everyone was doing with food waste. And what we realized is that while everyone was doing it at its own piece, we didn't really see the big picture, and that there was a lack of data and information about what the whole food waste landscape is, from the farm to the plate, what really was happening. There wasn't any good data that was done. There were a lot of reports that were done on different pieces of it, but what was missing was the economic impact of that. And we come from the business perspective in addition to the environmental perspective. And so we said, you know what, if it's not there, maybe we should create it. And so we asked Mission Point if they would engage in such an activity, and Sarah stepped up and really took the lead, and for 2 years managed this refed roadmap. And we came up with a name, and we had hoped, and I think we're very happy with what the results were, that we would do real rigorous data and provide data and solutions and obstacles to the solutions so that people would become aware of the issues of food waste and what those solutions are and how they could engage. What's the action that they could take? I asked Sarah to collect logos, and she did a great job. But it's just, we ran Refed as we ran Priceline in some ways. It was startup. We were and continue to be scrappy. And because Refed came out of nowhere, what we felt was it's really important to have partners around us that have the credibility and the expertise. And Dana was with us and still is from the very beginning, conceptually with it, and with me on the steering committee. And we created this advisory council of the folks that you see here, over 30 businesses, nonprofits, government agencies, who were all working together. We hired Deloitte as the consulting firm to actually go gather all the data. And we really beat up that data with the idea that when the report, the roadmap would come out, that we all could essentially hold hands and believe that the data was strong, it was accurate, and we wouldn't be questioning the data, we would all be looking towards the solutions. We were really very fortunate to have a group of funders, other foundations that joined Betsy and I. We were in first, again, back to catalytic philanthropy, and fortunately we had probably 7 other foundations and families that got behind us before there was a name Refed, before we really knew exactly what we're doing. They joined us and showed the support, and I believe that they're quite pleased with what the results were from the report. And since then, Refed has become a lot more established. It enabled us to hire Chris to take it and lead the organization forward. But I do want to say thanks to our funders. And it was the first time, again, having a foundation, we're always on the side that's being asked, which is actually quite nice. This was the first time that I had to go on the other side and ask. And I learned and have a lot more respect for everybody in the nonprofit that is often doing the asking. So with ReFed, we wanted to, what is the problem? What is the food waste problem? And approximately 40% of food that is grown is wasted in the US. And that 40% is roughly the same number that's wasted around the world. It's wasted for different reasons. In the rest of the world, more of it's wasted on the farm and through the supply chain. Here, most of that waste is at the consumer level and the consumer-facing level. And that's what this shows, that between the homes and restaurants and markets, a good 80% of the food is wasted. And all of these graphics are right out of the ReFed report, which is online, refed.com. And if you're a real data person, behind the report, there's another 100 pages of the technical appendix. So if you really wanted to get into the details of what's behind that, there's some great reading. We created a cost curve, and it may be hard to see all those solutions. Again, you could see it online. But essentially, all of the work said, what are the solutions from an economic perspective that would have the biggest bang for the buck? And in food waste, and it's the EPA, it's essentially reduce, recover, recycle. So how do you avoid waste to start with? If it's there, how do you recover it and for human consumption? And lastly, how do you recycle it with the whole goal of keeping food waste out of the landfill? The term food waste, as we spent the day in the last couple of days in Nogales, a lot of people say, don't use that word food waste. That's really a bad term, and maybe that would be a good question as to what is a better way to describe what it is, unsaleable food or food that wasn't sold. But it is a shame and it is a waste, but it's good food. And so there's some consumer education and some more marketing that could happen around that. So this is a cost curve. What's very interesting is on those big bars up there are the prevention. And so date labeling and consumer education, which Dana will talk more about, is the biggest bang for your buck. If you can actually avoid wasting the food to begin with, that's the best thing you can do. Down on the right here is centralized anaerobic digestion and centralized composting. That's where the biggest volume still is and is going to the landfills. And so it's not, doesn't give you the biggest return on your dollar, but it's the biggest volume. So it's a combination of all those things. There isn't any one that's better. And the whole idea of the cost curve was to give a roadmap visually for industry and for government and for consumers and small businesses to figure out how they could reduce food waste in their own business. Again, the three sets of solutions are prevention, recovery, and recycling, and there are 27 in total. It doesn't mean that these are the only. Actually, since the report was published a year ago, there have been quite a few other categories that are coming out that we weren't studying or they weren't as large at the time, but seems to, even in the last year, there's been phenomenal growth and phenomenal innovation that's happening in food waste. It's a big problem, and what we were trying to show with ReFed is that with some investable dollars, you can solve that problem and you can really have an economic solution. And so the statistics here, first of all, meals recovered. It will double the amount of meals that are recovered if you start acting on these solutions. There's a tremendous amount of water that's being used to grow this food that's not being eaten. Business profits, again, businesses, whether it's farms or anyone through the supply chain or restaurants, they're paying money for this food, but they're not getting paid. You can recover that much in business profits. And the $6 billion in consumer savings is because, as previous slides said, that so much of the waste is at the consumer level. If the consumer wasted less food, they would put that money in their pocket. And again, that's a big, big effort of what Dana and NRDC are doing. And the last is jobs. And we are very conservative about the 15,000 jobs that will be formed through food waste solutions. We believe now that that number is significantly larger, and we're seeing a lot of innovation and job creation. Job creation is interesting. Dana and I had the opportunity last year, right around this time, to testify in the US Congress Agriculture Committee. And I don't know, Dana, if you had ever done it before, but no. So it was the first time for me as well. And it's very interesting because food waste truly is a bipartisan problem and a bipartisan solution. And as we were marched around to the Congress folks, both on the Republican side and on the Democrat side, when we sat with them, wherever they were from, and they are in the Ag Committee, whether they were from Texas, Louisiana, the state of Washington, California, they would look at us in the eyes and say, what can you do in my district? How can you reduce hunger in my district? And it's amazing that in agricultural communities, it's not amazing, it's sad, but there's so much food that's being produced, and yet there's so much food insecurity in those rural areas. And that's what Congress is interested in reducing hunger and in job creation and economic development. So we in the food waste sector feel like there is an opportunity to get bipartisan support and make that happen, and job creation is a big part, and it's innovation. So with ReFed, the 27 solutions came down to 4 levers that we call policy, innovation, financing, and education. And all those 27 levers need some piece of this. There's some aspect of policy of simplifying the policy. Innovation, everywhere we go, whether it's technology innovation or business model innovation, it's needed. Financing is needed, always needed for everything, whether it's financing to support small-scale local nonprofits or financing a large amount of dollars needed for large-scale composting or anaerobic digestion. So financing is really important. And education is so key, whether it's at the household level or at the employee level at a restaurant or supermarket. Since we launched ReFed a year ago, we hired Chris, which is wonderful. We've created stakeholder action guides. As I said earlier, ReFed was a multi-stakeholder, so we got everybody working together. And now, since we've launched it, we are going to each stakeholders. We're going to foundations, to retailers, to universities, and giving them real specific directions in the roadmap. So universities, just as an example, 2 of the 27 solutions were trayless dining and smaller plates. You don't need, it's not high tech, you don't need a lot of technology, it's not a policy change. It's a university deciding that they get rid of the tray, or a buffet gets rid of the tray, and that the plate size instead of 11 inches goes to 9 inches. Those 2 things at a university level or any place that is buffet can reduce the amount of dollars that the university or the institution is spending on food. It actually can make people healthier because they take less food. So there are simple solutions to make that happen, and our guides are to now help each of those sectors really follow it and take some action. We have 2 tools that we'll be releasing next week. One is an online policy tool, which ReFed did with the Harvard Food Law Policy Clinic. And policy is very confusing. There's federal policy, there's state policy, there's municipal policy. And so things related to even donating food is very confusing. And we've spent a lot of time talking to retailers, talking to restaurants, and there's a lot of food that gets thrown out instead of getting donated because people are concerned about the liability issues, or they don't really understand the policy. So this policy tool is an online tool that should explain the different policies, and then what we hope is that the policy gets simpler, it gets unified, and there's best practices of that. And the last part of this is the innovator database, which we're very excited about because since the ReFed roadmap came out and people see ReFed as a portal in some ways for innovation related to it, we have over 400 innovators and entrepreneurs that are part of the database. That's going to be launched next week or the week after. And the innovation is all over the place. It really comes with the three reduce, recover, recycle. It fits within the 27 solutions. When you look at this, some of the big areas are donated systems to be able to track donations better, transportation for donations. So much more food would be donated, but it's hard to get the food from point A to point B. Composting, and then secondary marketplace, which is the idea of taking food that would be wasted from a byproduct for some process and used to create other food. So after juicing, which is everywhere, there's all this great product that can be used for vegetarian hamburgers and other aspects of it. There's a gentleman right out here, a company called Regrain, that is using the spent from breweries and creating granola bars. And there's all kinds of exciting new food. It's actually quite tasty that's being used for that. So lots of innovation happening at all these different levels. This is just showing from the 400 innovators in the database what's going on, and it's split between prevention, recovery, and recycling. It's split between for-profit and nonprofit, and it's split between local and national. So there's innovation happening everywhere. It's happening, as you would suspect, in labs, in colleges and universities, in people's garages. It's happening for large corporations. It's actually an exciting time for innovation. In my sort of closing couple minutes, this is a montage of where Betsy and I were in the last couple days. We were in the town of Nogales, Arizona. Has anyone been to Nogales, Arizona? Really? All right. For what brought you there? Yeah, okay, right. So Nogales, Arizona is something that actually Michelle had told Betsy and I 6 years ago, hey, if you guys are interested in food waste, you got to check out Nogales. And so we put it on our food waste bucket list. And we had the opportunity. We knew we were coming out to Will's class, and so we were coming from Colorado, and it's not exactly on the way, but we went to Nogales, Arizona. And what these slides are showing, right there in the middle is a food bank called Borderlands. And it's probably the largest food bank in America for fresh food, for fruits and vegetables. And in Nogales, Nogales is the largest port for fruits and vegetables coming from Mexico. And when Betsy and I were there, we were just amazed. There's something like 2,000 trucks, tractor-trailer trucks, every day that are passing the border and on their way to different distribution points in the US. So we went down there to understand what was going on, and Borderlands is a place that is recapturing as much food as they can. If anyone's looking for a summer opportunity or to do something, they could use really some smart people and some help down there, because well-intended people. That's Yoli in the bottom, who was our guide. And they have a farmer's market. They deliver in Arizona. They deliver, people can take it, some of it back to Mexico, and they're delivering all throughout the US. So the recovery aspect in Nogales, it gave us a chance just to see the magnitude of what was happening there. In addition to recovery, the whole concept of recycling is really important to keep things out of the landfill. So here we were visiting the Compost Cats, which is a compost facility, very large scale, that was started by students at the University of Arizona. It's huge, and they're composting the food that they can't recover for human consumption is going out and it's being composted. Animal feed, we've talked about as one of the solutions. These are showing happy pigs that are eating food that otherwise would have gone. And then the last part is the composting piece of that. the whole goal of reducing food waste and why we started with the Refed roadmap and why we're continuing to go deeper now in looking to solutions is to keep food out of the landfill. And this is a photo of Nogales, and that's a tractor trailer. And what happens multiple times a day is a tractor trailer full, in this case, I don't know if it's squash or bananas, but a trailer comes to the landfill, backs up, and just dumps it out. And the business owners really don't want to do that. The truckers don't want to do that. So I think the real goal is to find ways to keep good food out of the landfill, again, by prevention first, and second is by recovery, and last are the innovations, composting and anaerobic digestion. I think I'm done. And so you guys are the future. You really are. And that's our family on the other side. So thanks.
Thank you. Thank you, Jesse. I'm going to bring Jesse back up in a few minutes. I'm going to have Dana come up. Jesse, you did such an amazing job with Priceline that there's not a seat to be had on any United flight now, I understand. So I heard you were kind of the guy to blame for what happened this week. So our next guest, can I show your movie first, Dana? Yeah, let me show Dana's movie. Do we have sound on the? Thank you.
Oh, my sweet baby, you mean everything to me. I love you.
Can we get strawberries?
No, honey.
Please.
Okay.
SaveTheFood.com. Thank you, Dana. Dana, why don't you come up and speak, and then maybe I'll do some of your questions after that. We can talk about that. So Dana Gunders is a senior scientist at the National Resources Defense Council. She's really one of the true leaders in this field. I wanted her to come tonight to not only talk about her work, but also talk really to the class. Part of what we're helping people do is prepare their own careers. And so I'd love for you to talk a little bit too about, to the audience of students, how they might think about taking their own educational background and bringing it forward into a career, in the food system. Okay? So, and Dana is the author of The Waste-Free Kitchen, which is really it's a fantastic, very practical book. I've actually received it twice as gifts. So I don't know what that means, but I'm happy to have it in my kitchen. So Dana Gunders.
Do this?
I think.
This? Aha. Okay. Thanks, Will. Well, now I'm not kicking myself for not bringing you a copy of the book. Thank you all. Thanks, Will. Thank you all for being here, for having me. I know it's dinner time. I'm sure there's like 8 places you could get free food on campus somewhere that you're giving up to be here, so I appreciate that. I'm also honored to be in the line of people that you've had come. You guys are so lucky to have this class and such an amazing set of thinkers in the food system. But I also commend you for taking, your time to really learn about what's coming to your plates, and what you're eating and how much it takes to get that food here and to us every time we sit down for a meal. So, thank you for kind of listening on that account. I thought my road to this topic was winding until I heard Jesse's road to this topic. I have not gone and started a big online anything on my way here. In fact, my story on how I really kind of got involved in wasting food starts long before I was thinking about careers. My parents, who happen to be here tonight, my dad actually grew up in the Philippines, partially. My mom grew up in Queens. Her parents ran a lamp store. And what that meant for me is that as a child in our household, I'd be totally embarrassed because I'd have friends over for dinner and my dad would be like slurping the chicken bone until, every little piece of meat would come off it. You can ask them this, I swear. My mom would pour water in the pasta sauce container and like shake it around and then pour that on the pasta before serving it. I don't know if any of you all know somebody like that. Reuse the tea bag. Raise your hand if you do. All right. Okay, now wait, keep your hands up. Keep your hands up. All right, keep your hand up if that person you know is under 30 years old. Yeah, very few. And I think that's a really interesting point on this whole issue of how much food is getting wasted, is because there's kind of this conservation mindset that our parents, their parents had when it came to food that we've really lost. And in fact, since the 1970s, the average person in the US wastes 50% more food than they did back then. And I think that's just an important thing to note, that this has not always been the case. It's also not the case around the world. The average American consumer wastes about 10 times more than somebody in Southeast Asia, for instance. And while that's kind of sad in some ways, I think it gives a lot of hope because it means there's a lot of not only room for progress, but also, it can be done, right? We've done it before here, it's being done elsewhere. It doesn't have to be this way. And so I want to highlight a couple things that Jesse kind of flashed up on the screen, but just to dwell a little bit more on like why we should care about this issue. He mentioned some of the resource impacts, and I work for NRDC, that's that funny bear. If you haven't heard of us, we are an environmental organization, kind of like the Sierra Club or Environmental Defense Club, Defense Fund. We've been around about 45 years, working on everything from wildlife protection to oceans and climate and energy. So why are we working on this issue of how much food gets wasted? Well, what brought us to it really is how many resources it takes to get food to our plates. And if we're not using that food, what a waste, right? And so to give you a sense of that, in the ReFed report, there is a great visual of what it takes to grow all of the food. And it goes like this. If you took all of the uneaten food and were to grow it in one place, it would take a farm 3/4 the size of California. It would need water that surpasses the needs of California, Ohio, and Texas combined. And then you'd grow all that food, you'd harvest it, put it in trucks. Those trucks would drive around the country and thousands of miles, right? And they'd get filled up every 20 seconds all year long. And then they'd go basically, instead of to a plate, to a landfill where the food would rot, decompose, and produce methane, which is a powerful greenhouse gas. In fact, between what it takes to grow food and the methane produced with it rotting, the greenhouse gas footprint of wasted food is approximately equal to that of about 37 million cars, which is about 1 in 7. And, there's money involved. You saw the $218 billion worth of food going to waste. For the average person, that winds up being about $400 a year. I think that's actually an underestimate. But in addition to all that, there's this problem we have looking forward, and that is that as we look to 2050, population of somewhere around 9 billion people, the UN projects that we will need somewhere between 50 to 100% more food than we have now. So up to double the amount of food to meet the demand of that population, who is both growing but also increasingly eating more resource-intensive products. And where's that food going to come from, right? And so looking at using the food we're growing now better is kind of the obvious place to look. And I really see it as an efficiency problem, and that's where looking at the sort of reduce, reuse, recover mindset around this makes a lot of sense, to really prioritize not creating that surplus in the first place, because that's what gets us those efficiencies that allows us to use the food that we're growing to the best end. All right, so Jesse was describing, some of the business side of this, entrepreneurial. I wanted to talk a little bit more about the consumer end, and as you saw in one of his slides, trying to address this with consumers is, we believe, one of the biggest bang for the buck kind of ways to go about this. And that's partially because consumers are the largest source of food going to waste across the country, the biggest chunk of the pie. But also, beyond that, and I don't think we actually captured this in the analysis, but as consumers, when we are going to restaurants, when we're going to grocery stores, we bring our expectations with us. And those businesses want to keep us happy. Our dining halls want to keep us happy. And so they're operating in a particular way to satisfy their customers. And so those expectations that we're bringing can either drive waste or really give those businesses the kind of social license to do things a little bit differently in a way that they can waste less. So that's another reason that we think it's very important for consumers to kind of become aware of this issue. And lastly, we're all consumers, and then we're all other things too, right? We're students, we're teachers, we're policymakers, we work in restaurants and grocery stores. And so we really felt like when you reach people as people, you also get to them wherever else they are operating in the world. And that's another important reason to kind of get this out. So for all those reasons, NRDC embarked on a campaign called Save the Food, which you saw the video that we did. And as we were researching that campaign, let's see what I got here. Oh, I talked about that. As there's about a year's worth of research that went into developing the campaign and really looking into what are the root causes of why people are wasting food. And just 3 kind of interesting insights that came out of that. The first is that people don't realize they waste food. No one thinks they waste food. If you ask somebody, should food be wasted, nobody will tell you yes, but then you ask them, the next sentence that follows is, oh, but I don't waste food. My house, we don't waste food, or here's the 10 reasons why we don't waste food. So it's very hard to see, and actually one of my favorite statistics is that about 75% of Americans say they waste less than the average American. So secondly, our aspirations and good intentions lead to wasted food. Now, this was really interesting. What they found was that, many of us kind of live out our identities in the food, in our relationship with food in some ways. So you want to host a really good party, you have really good food. You want to eat well, you honor your body, be a healthy person, you buy a lot of fresh product. You want your kids to eat healthy, you're trying to cook interesting meals that will actually get them to eat. So we're doing all these things that to express ourselves that have very good intentions behind them with food. And this byproduct of that is that some of it goes to waste because we have all this fresh food in the fridge and we don't wind up using it, or you have all this leftover after a party. So that was kind of an interesting insight. And then lastly, the Ad Council, who's our partner on this ad campaign, and they do like, maybe you've seen Click It or Ticket, a lot of these big public service campaigns. Trying to get people to wear a seatbelt, stop littering, stop smoking, don't drink and drive. Well, what they found with this topic was this is actually way more complicated because it's not just one thing. Not wasting food is not like, okay, I'm just going to do this. It's actually the result of a set of behaviors. And it really is about having better food management practices, if you will. So in trying to reach out to people about it, it actually presents a much more complicated challenge for something like an advertising campaign. I should also note on the catalytic venture philanthropy side of things that the Fink Foundation was the first funder to come forward and help fund our Save the Food campaign. So just to dive in a little more, because I like to geek out on some of this behavior stuff. So what are these sets of behaviors that we're looking for and what's causing it? Well, here are some of the things that start to cause food to be wasted as people go about their lives related to food. Shopping. So we live out our aspirations in the shopping, in the grocery store. We go to the store and we walk along and go, I'm going to eat healthy this week, and I'm going to buy kale chips and, kale and everything green. And then you get home and you're like, I'm just having pasta or ordering a pizza or whatever it is. So that's one. Another is food storage. A lot of people don't know how to properly store food, which makes it kind of wilt and go bad in your fridge faster. But also because people are not cooking as much, they're not as familiar with food and how to handle it. We've adopted this when in doubt, throw it out type of mentality where, if anything doesn't look quite right, people are throwing stuff out. Cooking, there's a lot around cooking. I think really one of the basic things here is that people are not learning to cook in the way that they used to, and really in a home to waste less food, knowing how to cook and kind of throw a meal together with what you have is one of your key strategies. And lastly, and I find this one fascinating, is actually around white space. So, when it comes to buildings or artwork or design, we really value white space. But when it comes to food, we're terrified of it. And we want to fill any space that we have when it comes to food. So you have... Jesse talked about smaller plates. You have a big plate with just a little bit of food. That kind of feels weird. You have a empty refrigerator, and it's like, ugh, right? That is a sad photo. So that's just one of those other kind of behavioral things that we're kind of fighting. Okay, so here we go. Oh, yeah. This is, along with the ReFed report, another highly researched graph to talk about food getting wasted. But this is kind of, just in the time I've been working on this, I get asked a lot about, why are people wasting food, and how do we stop this? And I have kind of boiled it down to these three things. So one is people, as we just talked about, they don't think they're wasting food. Nobody's thinking about it. It's something that happens in little bits and pieces everywhere. And so we have really become numb to it. It's not really on our radar. So a little bit of awareness, and I guarantee you, you're all going to go out into the world over the next week, and you're going to see food getting wasted here and there. And I think being aware can actually help, skim some of that wasted food off the top. Secondly, information. We don't all have quite the right information to waste less foods, and that may be, again, back to cooking skills. We might not know how to take the random set of ingredients we have and cook something out of it. We may not know how to store food. We may not know what the date labels on food mean. And I'm just going to pause here for 1 second, because I will be remiss if I let anybody leave this room without knowing the truth about date labels on food. So do you know what I'm talking about? The sell by, use by, best by dates? See some heads nodding. All right. How many people throw their food out on those dates or think that you're supposed to throw food out on those dates? All right. Did you give him a teaser or something? All right, I like that. We're making progress. You don't. Those dates are not federally regulated, and they're not trying to tell you the food is bad or spoiled, or that you should be throwing food out on those dates. They are just a guess, the best guess, educated guess by the manufacturer as to when those products are at their freshest or their peak quality. And there really is no standardization behind them right now. So about 80% of Americans report throwing food out at least occasionally on the dates because they're worried about its safety. And I just want you all to know those dates are not about safety. Okay, we can move on. So I think one of the biggest reasons that people are wasting food out there, frankly, is inconvenience. We can give them a lot of information. We can give them a lot of awareness. I know coffee is not that good for me to drink. The fact of the matter is I drink it every morning, even like this. Don't tell him. But, there's a convenience factor here. And I think that is just something to acknowledge about the issue and, just kind of operate knowing, it takes a little bit of extra effort sometimes to take food home from a restaurant or, cook when you have food at home, but you really just feel like getting takeout or something like that. Okay, so how can we stop? This is not a one-size-fits-all problem, but I think one of the keys to wasting less food is to plan. Not to use four-letter words up here because this one for me is a really hard one. But really, if we could all just plan out what we were going to eat for the week and then go and buy that and then follow through that plan, we really would have a lot less food going to waste. The reality is, probably for you as well as me, that doesn't fit into my life that well. And actually, this is the book that I wrote that Will mentioned, and so I like to try to give people kind of a set of strategies in this book around how we can waste less food. And kind of, I think ideally we'd all plan our meals and follow through that plan. The reality is that, we need things like emergency use-it-up measures, freezing food, inviting friends over, dogs who will eat all of our leftovers, it really takes like a set of strategies. And you know yourself best, so depending on how you operate, you can sort of come up with the types of practices that will work for you. Which brings me to my next point, which is to customize. So we all have very different food habits, and we all have different kind of sets of skills. So again, in the book, we have information, everything from like, how do you blanch if you're somebody who's actually going to take the time to freeze and blanch and freeze your food. We also have what you can and can't feed to your dog if you're not. So I think really coming up with something that is going to work for you. And if you go to savethefood.com, we have tried to provide a ton of information there to help people get the very specific information, in that information wedge that they could use to waste less food in their own lives. So you'll find a host of different products, and what do you do when you're holding a wrinkled tomato in your hand and you're standing in your kitchen? How many of you, by the way, live in a place where you actually cook food? Okay, most of you. I wasn't sure. Another strategy is to prioritize. Not all wasted food is equal, at least from a resource perspective, also from a financial perspective, a taste perspective, a nutrition perspective. So, prioritize. You're probably doing this naturally, but just to give you one sense, I know it's hard to read, but this is a chart that talks about the water it takes to produce different food products. In fact, every time you throw out a hamburger, that's the equivalent of taking a 90-minute shower in terms of the water it took to produce that hamburger. The good news for all of you is that way up there at the top is beer. And wine is just like a couple little half droplets down. So, But no, I think certainly when I talk to businesses about this, I try to encourage them to really start with animal products, with meat products. If you have to focus in a particular area, that's a good one to start with for all of those reasons: financial, nutrition, and resource. And lastly, I think we need to kind of be very real about this issue and what we're willing to put into it and what's going to work for you. In my book, I tell a little story about writing the book, kind of in the intro letter to the book, and I talk about being in a coffee shop where I'm sitting there, I'm writing the book about telling people not to waste food, and here's all your strategies, and I order this sandwich, and I get a salad with it, and it comes with drenched in this awful dressing, and I'm not gonna eat this. And so I'm sitting there and I'm laughing to myself at the irony of this, because there's this big salad on the plate that I'm not gonna touch because I just can't get myself to eat it, as I'm writing about not wasting food, right? And I think that reminded me to include something in the book about this really kind of being a journey. It's not about being perfect. It's not about wasting no food. It's not about feeling super guilty when you do. It's just kind of about increasing your awareness, taking steps where you can, finding a few things that work, and kind of letting that be your start. And I think that's true at home. It's true, it's about bringing a container to the restaurant, if you can think of that, maybe that's your step. Maybe it's ordering a baby burrito instead of a full burrito, because you know that you're not going to finish it. And so that, I think, is the plan. We didn't do the other quiz questions, so this looks a little more random. But this is my last quiz question of the others that we might get to. But let's just say you were concerned about this whole food waste thing. What could you do? Something. And this is, when I talk about there's this world of things that we could be doing around this. And I think we're in a pretty exciting time right now because there's a lot of trial and error. I've been working on this issue since about 2010. Back then, nobody was talking about it. Since then, there's just been, thousands of media articles, a lot of energy, a lot of attention. And where that puts us right now is at a place where people are very interested, but really just kind of starting to figure out what to do. And so it's this exciting time of innovation, of trial and error, on how to address this issue. And in that spirit, I used to put this slide up. That's my daughter, actually about a year ago now, but and I thought I was so brilliant because I put this clear plastic mat. I used to talk about how innovation isn't always high tech. I put a clear plastic mat under her high chair, and she throws food down, and then I can pick it back up, and it's not dirty. And aren't I brilliant? Well, then she figured out that this is this awesome game because she can throw food down, and then food comes back up, and isn't that funny? and did not really start to distinguish between the carpet or the dog hair filled floor and the mats, or our house and other places for that matter. So it actually totally backfired. I'm not sure if I suggest this or not anymore, at least when it comes to not wasting food. But that was kind of my trial and error approach there. So I encourage you all to just kind of step back, think about just in your own eating habits, in your own food habits, what can you do in your own dining halls, and maybe in your more innovative entrepreneurial spirit, kind of what you can do. So with that, we'll move on.
Seats. Jesse can come back and we can chat a little bit. That be okay?
Yeah, that's great. I'll bring this. I'll leave that.
Sit in the middle. So, is this on? Do I have this on? Yeah, I'm on. Am I on? Yes. So, Jesse, one of the things that I really wanted to kind of underscore with the ReFed report was, from my perspective, it was the imprimatur of an entrepreneur was sort of all over it, the way you went about it. So I just wanted to kind of highlight a couple of those things, because from a design perspective and an implementation perspective, it's kind of unusual. And I think it's fun to have both of you here, because you kind of take an entrepreneurial approach, and NRDC is a little bit more of a traditional kind of NGO, nonprofit, working in policy and in the consumer sector and all. But with ReFed, and let me go back one step. Last week with Michelle, we got into this topic around the word consumer, because we, fundamentally are feeling like the word consumer may be outdated. It really infers it's a non-sustainable concept. I mean, if we all think of ourselves as consumers, we're gonna be unsustainable. So after that class, one of my old friends actually wrote me a note and said that Alvin Toffler in the third wave coined a term prosumer from his Practopia, sort of utopian, image of the future, where a prosumer was somebody that was very mindful and engaged and planned a lot and was in this sort of society that was much more about reciprocity and sharing, and sort of a lot of what was created was, intentionally provided for others on more of an individual basis. So people were individuals but could provide, but were linked to others. So it was a kind of room for personal kind of identity, but much more within an ecosystem of interconnection. So I'm kind of, I want to just kind of plant that. But going back to the ReFed report, one of the things, you showed like, you asked Sarah to get all these logos for you, but really there was a lot of thought into which stakeholders needed to be at the table to, number one, deliver really good data, and two, kind of be representative of something that would have the impact and would be taken seriously. So could you talk a little bit more about that design? Like you just flashed all those cool logos up there, but a lot of thought went into who should be at the table, right?
Right. I'm making a joke about collecting logos. I think that was maybe our code amongst ourselves. But it was really important to get the right people around the table, and from different people within the same industry and the same sector, and then different sectors. And so even within the food industry, there's differences in opinion of how to solve the problem. And that was one of the challenges that we realized, is that even when you look at reduce, recover, recycle, where everyone's under the same big tent of trying to reduce food waste, there are competing objectives. If you do a really, really good job of reducing, then you may think you have less to recover. if you do such a great job in recovering, there may be less that you can compost and use anaerobic digestion. So we tried to get people who represented all the different factions within all of that. And quite frankly, and Sarah did truly an amazing job with the stakeholders. And Dana was on those calls with our advisory council. And there were some heated conversations about even how do you measure this? What are the right metrics? What are the right goals that you should be trying to accomplish? So I think we were very deliberate and strategic about who we wanted to have around the table, and it just grew. I think once we got some people around the table and they believed the credibility of what this initiative was and that it wasn't, there wasn't a secret agenda that was happening, it actually attracted more and more people to the point that since we have launched the roadmap a year ago, the advisory council has grown and more people want to really be part of this initiative.
But you have this kind of really interesting paradoxical issue that if you're really successful with the initiative, you put a lot of people out of business.
Yeah.
But it's such a huge
Yeah.
problem that that's not really
Yeah,
the problem. But
right.
it gets to the point of view that there's, depending on where you are in that value chain,
Right.
you're competing with other people that have a different solution.
Right.
So I just find that really interesting. And every year, we have a class here at Haas in the MBA program called Food Venture Lab, where teams of students go after a pressing food systems issue. We've had people look at food insecurity on campus. Every semester, somebody goes after the food waste issue in terms of repurposing wasted food. And all of them end up at about week 10 realizing how hard it is. And, this fact that all this stuff's going, Whole Foods is throwing all this stuff away. Why can't I just pick it up at Whole Foods and turn it into soup and make smoothies out of it? Dana, you've looked at that. So why isn't that working? Why don't we have more of that sort of repurposed? What's breaking down in the system that's inhibiting that solution from getting to scale?
I would say the dispersed nature of the problem combined with the perishability of the product. So yes, Whole Foods has, it feels dramatic if you, and let's not pick on them, they actually Whole Foods, because they have a kitchen and they prepare food on site, tends to have less food going to waste because they'll take those watermelons with a little bit of a bruise on them that they can't sell, and they'll take them back to the kitchen and sell you fruit salad instead. Whereas some of the other chains can't do that on site anymore. They've outsourced all that. They don't have the kitchens, and so they are actually unable to use what's on site. And so anyways, if you go behind, if you were to dig through their dumpster, you'll find what feels like a lot of food, and it is a lot of food, but it's different every day. It's not enough to really build a business on coming out of any one place. And so then you find yourself in a situation where you're trying to react to a spontaneous, unpredictable, and dispersed supply, I would say, is the biggest challenge.
One of our students, Hillary, was really interested in how do you influence local policy to participate more actively in this problem. She mentioned that Berkeley, for instance, doesn't have compost trucks that come up and pick, like a lot of towns don't have those kind of compost service like we do in Berkeley and other towns. So do you have any advice for people about how to influence that part of their community through policy? Does NRDC have like a blueprint for that, or?
Yeah, as a matter of fact, we're working on one, Will. It's true, Berkeley, we're really lucky to have curbside collection here, as they call it. NRDC, a separate project from our consumer project, has been to look at what can cities do. And we're interested in cities for three reasons. Well, we find them to be very motivated actors, actually, and I think you'll find that if you do go and get involved in local government, they're interested in this topic, and that's because they have a waste problem. Often cities or counties are the ones in charge of waste. They have a food insecurity problem, and so if some of that food can be rescued and help address that, that's of interest to them. And then they often have climate goals, and as you heard, there's a big climate implication to this issue, so you can hit on all three of those pain points by looking at this as a local government. We've been in the process of looking around the country to find best practices on this, and it's challenging. Rolling out a composting program is expensive, and you have to, there's a lot of, you're putting extra trucks on the road, you need a facility, you need the infrastructure to actually be able to take that stuff. And ideally, you have a market at the end, that you're gonna actually do something with that compost. And so I think specifically on the composting side, it's something that's happening pretty rapidly, but just takes the right set of things coming into play, and a lot of it kind of boils down to funding and infrastructure. Unfortunately,
have you guys thought about any kind of a counter? Like when you go to New York and you see that big billboard in Times Square with the numbers. It says like the amount of money the president spent on golfing in the last 17 days, or is there a way to capture this and kind of put it back in people's faces, like that we're either making progress or that, maybe both sides of the equation, the amount of food that's being wasted today or the amount of food that's being recovered? Have you thought about other ways with the ad council or to communicate that?
Well, I think you could do it like at a dining room level or university level or at a municipal level by even tracking the pounds or tons of organic waste that's going into the landfill. There's a lot of levers that need to be played with. When Betsy and I were down in Nogales, they had the best intentions. The food bank recovered, you saw the warehouse filled with tomatoes. They couldn't distribute all of it, and so they had to do something. And so they started sending it to the compost facility. Well, it was more expensive to go deliver to the compost facility than it was to go to the landfill. And so there's economics that need to be adjusted here too. Landfill, the truckers would probably say landfill is expensive, but the real externalities and the cost of the landfill is not captured in. So that's a dial, and we talked about even in the refit report that as landfill tipping fees to landfills goes up, then people will be more creative finding ways to avoid the landfill.
So if they had to pay for the methane offset that was coming out of the landfill and factor that into their costs, would be a different cost.
Yes, if there was a cost of that.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, I will say this too, is that again, being down in Nogales and seeing these huge tractor trailers, you realize what an incredible, efficient food system we have, getting it from the farm to the consumer, whether it's at the restaurant or the supermarket. Very efficient. We're not very efficient in taking it from the various different places and doing something else with it. And that's the infrastructure that that needs to be worked on. So a donation, transportation, information technology, think of an Uber type for donations. And there's a company that we're involved with called Spoiler Alert, which is up in Boston, which is doing exactly that, where they're helping if a food service company has a pallet of potatoes or Brussels sprouts that they can't use, they can use the Spoiler Alert system, and a food bank or a nonprofit can take it and do something with it. So it's so localized, the food waste issue is so localized that it is a national problem we have, but a lot of these need to be solved at the local level from a delivery and an infrastructure standpoint.
One of the reasons I wanted Jesse to come speak with you is you got a feel for the many different perspectives he's brought to solving the problem. So he starts with a background in environmental science and forestry in his education, and then he gets swept into the realm of the internet and technology entrepreneurship. Has an amazing experience there. And then you started looking at impact investing with the, your triangle of objectives, and then kind of catalytic venture philanthropy. And so I think, it's fascinating to me the way the report kind of evolved. And one of the things you talked about was that as a funder, as the seed funder, your family, that you realized through your venture capital experience that it would be best to syndicate this opportunity. So you went out and used the old principle of OPM. How many business school students here do we have? Who knows what OPM is? Anybody? Anybody want to guess? Okay, I'll tell you. This will be on the final, which we're not having. But for all of you at home, it means other people's money. It's an entrepreneurial credo. You put your own skin in the game to show you're committed, but then you use other people's money. And the reason you do that, a lot of reasons. You create leverage, but it also helps you validate that if other people will put their money in and go along with you, it might mean that you're onto something. And then, again, the sort of experience level and credibility of the people that invest with you helps to confirm. And as we know, those of us that have been in the entrepreneurial zone, some of this becomes a little bit of a self-fulfilling prophecy. We have a vision of where we want to go, but we're bringing people along. And I think what's so important with this food waste issue is it's a systems issue. It has a lot of different stakeholders, and it needs a lot of coordination. So I think what Sarah did and what the whole team did is really enviable, and I hope all of you will take a good close look at the ReFed report. And maybe just to close tonight, Dana, I'd love, maybe you have a couple words of advice for students. We have freshmen here, we have graduate students, and actually they're here because they're getting credit. It's not that they could just be out anywhere tonight. They're actually taking this class. So they're very dedicated. And what did you study? And what would you tell people now if you wanted to really make a dent in, some kind of purpose-driven issue around food? What advice do you have for students setting out? And what internships are you going to have open this summer?
Turns out I'm not going to be working this summer.
Well, then your job will be available. How about that?
I want you all to know that when Will asked me to come, I told him I was going to be 8 months pregnant. He said, "Don't worry, my wife's an OB, so she'll be there, and if anything happens, you're in good shape."
Yeah.
So I actually studied something called Earth Systems. It was a combination of economics and earth sciences. I focused on energy efficiency. I really thought I was going to go that route for a while. And I got into food after biking around Asia for 8 months and landing on a subsistence farm with a family, and where there was kind of a program around it, and I really got to see how the global food economy was affecting these people in the Indian Himalayas. And it got me very interested in food and feeling like, wow, what an interesting intersect of nutrition and community, but also economics and business and environmental things. And so that got me really interested. I came back wanting to work in the food industry with no experience, and it actually took me quite a while to break in.
What was that like, breaking in?
It was slow. And, the funny thing about getting a job is that everyone wants to hire people with experience in it already. Whatever they're hiring for, they want you to have experience already. And if you can just have that one, even if it's like a 4-week, internship project, something you did on contract that makes it look like you have some experience in an industry, all of a sudden these, people are willing to hire you. It's kind of ironic. So that's what I did. I got a small little gig with the avocado industry and the wine industry doing little projects, and all of a sudden I had experience in the food industry. I think my advice is to try to get experience or a skill in a kind of solid technical place, whether that's food procurement or farming and agriculture or something. I think it's much easier to go from a kind of marketable skill to sustainability than the other way around. And so that's kind of the advice I often have for students when they ask me about that is, whether it's math, or you can take hard skills and apply them to so many creative problems. And I think a lot of the people making them who were striving to get involved in ReFed and at NRDC are supply chain managers in companies, are the people buying the food at some of these companies. And so those are the people we really want to see engaged in the topic. And it doesn't sound as perhaps exciting as you're looking forward towards a career, but I think it's where a lot of the change gets made. So that's my
hard
advice.
skills, some practical experience. Going on the field trip might be a good thing to do.
Definitely field trips.
Yeah.
Never miss a field trip.
Let's have one question from the audience before we're done. Rohini, do you have a microphone that you can run up here to someone? Right up here. Can you raise your hand? Stand up and introduce yourself. Okay, go ahead. Add right now.
Before the question, I just want to add, one thing that I would say is when Betsy and I graduated from college, there were really clear distinctions between the for-profit sector, the nonprofit sector, government sector. And I feel like a lot of those lines are blurring right now, and that innovation is happening everywhere. So social entrepreneurship, that word, can happen anywhere. Dana is an entrepreneur, and the work that she's done at NRDC is really amazing. And so the entrepreneurship can happen in the nonprofit and the for-profit. It can happen in small entities. You could start your own. You could work for a large enterprise, and you could swap back and forth. So Chris, who joined us 2 weeks ago, is now head of a nonprofit initiative, came from the corporate sector and was entrepreneurial in that sector. And so you can go back and forth. And so the clear path of having a job and having to stay in a particular thing, I think, is gone, and you can swap back and forth. And so if you know the problem that you want to solve, you can get your skills, as Dana and Will said, get your technical skills and just keep adding it throughout your career.
Good advice. Okay, question here. Introduce yourself.
Hello, my name is also Dana, so namaste. And I'm an environmental science major, so namaste to you, Jesse, as well. I buy Imperfect Produce every week, and I get the box. I know that you reference it a lot in your plan. I'm not sure if you're talking about the actual company or not, but yeah, I buy from them. They have amazing fruits and veggies, but I also am a volunteer at the Berkeley Student Food Collective, which you should check out. I think you would both like it. And it's just a plug. And a big part of our mission is to provide low-income people or people who just maybe don't have that much money for lunch that day with fresh produce and fresh fruits and veggies. But so I'm wondering if by me I can walk into Whole Foods and probably get some fruits and veggies that'll last me a week. So I don't really need things like Imperfect Produce. And I know that there are a lot of people that do, like public schools and people in prison and soup kitchens, nonprofits who need fresh fruits and veggies, and those people don't get to eat produce very often. So I'm wondering what needs to change in the food system so that instead of these trucks of produce literally going into landfills, why can't we get all of those people that eat garbage basically from the government, why can't we get them fed?
You've thought a lot about that.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you my kind of ideal answer, which we're a long way from, is that I think in the ideal world, you don't design a system where to feed hungry people, you wait for that food to go through the system and get rejected somewhere and then get it to those people. I think in the ideal system, you're so efficient that you don't have that extra food, and you plan in a separate channel a way to feed people who need it. That's how I like to kind of step back and think about the problem. The reality is we have a lot of really good food that is surplus right now, and it certainly would serve us better to have people particularly those in need, eating it. So I think that, how do we get it to them? Some of the transportation logistics are probably the most important to solve. So you have these places where there's actually large quantities of this stuff, and it's pretty fresh, right? I mean, some of the food that Jesse was seeing in Nogales probably has 3 weeks of shelf life left. And yet it's so expensive to send it on a refrigerated truck to Ohio where they need it that it doesn't make it there. So figuring out those, I've heard ideas about produce hitching a ride on other produce trucks. There's a lot of trucks, refrigerated trucks going around the country that have 1 or 2 pallet spaces available. And if somebody could sort of mastermind that IT challenge, produce could hitch a ride, and that might help solve it. But it unfortunately comes down to economics. And I think when you have a situation where it's economically, the straight economics don't work, that's where you're looking at policy solutions, right? So could we look to the Farm Bill to actually fund cold transportation of produce to food banks, or other kind of public and money or foundation money to start to fund those types of things?
Yes.
Really, the purpose of our trip to Nogales was to try to answer that question. We knew that it is the one place in our country where more produce is coming through, and we know that even though there's a small percent of waste, there's a tremendous amount of volume that's waste. And from the work that we've done with Wholesome Wave, and Michelle, you heard him last week talking about access to healthy food, fruits and vegetables. It's really, again, it's sort of Betsy's vision saying, how do we make that all happen? And fruits and vegetables is really water. So we're moving water. It looks like a tomato, but it's really water that's being moved. And so part of our trip, and I think what Betsy's trying to figure out, is there something that can happen with those fruits and vegetables at the point where you can change it so it's still healthy, but it's a processed in a healthy way, whether it's flash frozen or something else, and you make a soup out of it. And then it's much more cost effective to transport. You're not transporting water the same way, you've dehydrated. So there's innovation that can happen to be moving large quantities of food and get it to those in need.
So there's technological innovation, there's economic innovation, and there's policy innovation all at work. So all the people in this class and all those different departments.
Something for everybody.
Yeah, absolutely. So thanks very much for coming tonight. A big hand for Dana and Jesse. And we'll see you next week with some Berkeley alumni who are making a dent in food systems innovation. Thank you.